It's all about the experience, and genuine local connections really change a visit from just seeing a place to actually experiencing it. You can read a Lonely Planet or influencer blogs, but it won't really get you the actual understanding of how people live.
Welcome to Sustainable Today, Successful Tomorrow, where we explore real world sustainable tourism stories that actually work. Today, we're talking about what makes travel truly meaningful. We're asking, how do we make genuine local connections a part of travel? To unpack this question, we've spoken to Thomas Power from Pura Aventura, a UK based tour operator known for designing journeys that go beyond the highlights. In today's episode, we'll listen to a few short clips from that interview and we'll release the full conversation next week. So, Anne, why do you think that genuine local connections are such a powerful part of travel?
I think because it's all about the experience, and genuine local connections really change a visit from just seeing a place to actually experiencing it. Locals in destinations have stories, traditions, local customs, and they really shape the identity of a destination. And well, you can read a Lonely Planet or influencer blogs, but it won't really get you the actual understanding of how people live, the authentic way of life, what do they value, and to really have that actual experience of a destination. So connecting with locals is a big part of that. And connecting with locals where you can have better stories to tell, better travel memories. I think that's the entire goal of travel anyway.
Yeah, brilliant. It's all about stories.
Yeah.
And we'll dive deeper into that later on. But first, when you think about your personal travels, what genuine connections really stood out to you?
Well, in the Paraphrase podcast, I was kind of thinking about, okay, which encounter do I want to share? Because we've traveled quite a lot. So there's been a lot of encounters over the years. I was actually thinking about my experience in Rwanda a few years ago where I was visiting a cultural or art workshop. Yeah, this is kind of an art workshop.
Okay.
And there was one guide that drove me there, and in the car we started chatting, and we were talking about how he also works in his grandmother's herbal medicine garden. And I'm actually very interested in, okay, so you're a tour guide, you're a driver, but you also work in this medicine garden. And he actually said that we want to see it. And so after we went to the cultural workshop place, we actually went to this herbal medicine garden.
That was spontaneous.
That was kind of spontaneous. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe to me, maybe he calculated that in, who knows. So, but I am not pretty sure that was spontaneous. But so we went there, and I still really remember his excitement from like running from one plant to the other, allowing me to smell, feel, taste like these different herbs, and believe all these herbs treat over 200 plus diseases.
Oh, wow.
So he was really telling all about, yeah, how he's continuing to work with his grandmother and how proud he is of that. And also, well, I think what stood by me is like how important his position was and how humble he was about that, because he said like a lot of locals in that area don't have the means to actually go see a doctor. So their medicine garden actually helps treat a lot of disease for locals who can't afford it.
They really rely on it.
They kind of rely on it, yeah. But yeah, it's like a spontaneous visit that we went to go to a cultural site to look at local paintings, and then this happened. And I think the spontaneity of it, but also the stories he was telling, is like how I can share that story with you.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it was a really good experience.
And that's amazing. And I think what's made it personal is that he shared his family story.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
It's a shame I wasn't there for that one.
yeah, no, absolutely. And what about you? Do you have any genuine local connections that you?
Well, to be honest, I'm not really the kind of person to bust into spontaneous talk with strangers. But I do feel when there's like an activity connected to it, I do tend to talk more. So I remember us traveling to Titsikama National Park in South Africa, and we were kayaking into Storms River Gorge, which is absolutely stunning. And we took the extended tour, which takes about 4 hours. So you have the time to connect with the guides. And I remember us talking with the local guides. We were living there for 3 months actually, so we made some local friends and we kind of got talking about local politics with the guides, and it was a really interesting view for me from a young person who's from the region, and yeah, that's something that really stood out to me. So you won't see me talking to strangers for hours in a restaurant or in a bar, but I guess when it's connected to an activity and you can just take your time and get to know each other, I think that's cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think so too. I think I'm kind of the same in that. So when it's, I'd say like kind of facilitated.
Yeah,
So you book a tour and you go on a hike, for example, or you go on this water rafting tour. It's where you have the time to connect and ask questions. It's also okay if you don't, but it's the easier way
yeah.
to connect with people.
Well, I'm usually interested in the activity that I'm doing. So in that way, it's easy to get talking.
Yeah, there's a shared interest.
Yeah.
And especially what you said, like we have more awareness about the local political situation.
Yeah.
So it's quite well a normal conversation with normal conversation flow
Yeah.
and kind of ask like, hey, how do you think about this? Get that local perspective. So I think that genuine interest from both sides is really important
Yeah.
to create that.
Yeah. It really is. How well are you actually communicating sustainability? We see many travel businesses and destinations working hard, yet they still struggle to talk about it.
And maybe you feel the same. You're afraid of being seen as greenwashing, unsure what to share, or just not really connecting with your travelers. We've been there with a lot of travel brands, and we get how frustrating it is. So, with years of experience in sustainable tourism and marketing, we've created something simple to get you started.
It's called a sustainable marketing scam. You just answer a few quick questions, we'll take a look, and if it's a good fit, we'll invite you for a short call to go through your opportunities.
You can start today at goodtourisminstitute.com/scam and turn uncertainty into a clear, compelling story.
But let's get back to the main question. How do we make genuine local connection a part of travel? But before we do so, I think we need to define genuine local connection.
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. I think genuine local connections happen beyond transactional encounters and beyond staged experiences. And they can really happen when travelers meet people or locals the way they truly are. So beyond name badges, beyond guide scripts, for example, I think it's really important that you as a visitor are welcomed and that there's genuine interest in you as a person, that you're not just a number, but really an actual person that might be interesting to talk to or to get to know a little bit more. And Thomas actually had a very interesting statement about this. Let's play a clip where he talks about that.
Okay.
It's always the people. It's always the people. No, but I mean, it's the same with all of it, you know. Yeah, I went to see Machu Picchu, but you know what? I had this crazy night in a bar and I met this person and we ended up going back here and this happened. It's, nobody ever remembers the postcard view. So there's sort of the scenery is the backdrop, but the actual stuff, the beating heart of it all is personal.
Yeah, I really like what he says about the Machu Picchu example. Is that also I had friends visiting Machu Picchu, and of course they have the pictures. They have the pictures of the llamas, but what they're actually telling me is the funny guide they had or someone they met along the way. What they share is actually the people, and I think Thomas is absolutely right. Is that makes the actual travel experience so great. It's the people that you meet along the way.
Yeah, very true. I think these local connections make lasting memories.
Yeah.
And that's really what you want with travel. It's all about making lasting memories.
Yeah.
But aside from having better stories to tell and having memories, in what sense do you think local connections matter in a sustainability point of view?
I think in terms of sustainability, well, it's all about the actual connection. And I think the realization that you're visiting someone's home, someone's place to live. And then I think for kind of is really key in sustainable tourism is to behave like a visitor. There's always a statement like we want to create better places to live in and better places to visit.
Yeah.
But it also always has to be a combination. And I think visiting a place and getting the actual genuine connections reminds us traditions are very much alive. So just visiting Peru, Machu Picchu, I also remember that my friend was very surprised to say that the Inca culture is still very much alive. And she actually thought it was ancient and died out. But Thomas also addressed this in our interview where he said, well, the Inca culture is very much alive and it's not a museum, it's not history. And I think a lot of people don't realize that until they actually visit and talk to someone from an Inca community and how they learn that the weaving is not just a tourist attraction, but it's actually something they still do. That's how they make their money. And I think and that's also what I remember Theo said about Ankara about how his communities that he was working with were feeling so proud of being able to share their stories and also their realization that people from all over the world were traveling to their tribe to experience how they live. So this pride is really how you will empower local community. I think that's really important. And at the same time, very specifically, sustainability. I think connecting with locals, spending time with them automatically means that more money stays locally. So there's less money leaking to international operators or international hotel chains. So more money ends up in the local community that
Yeah.
can supports small businesses and to really allow a community well, to build their own future on their own terms. And yeah, I mean, if you can achieve that by more local connections, I mean, how perfect is that?
Yeah, I remember Theo saying that in our interview from last season. That I do think that's something important to point out that some people think that culture stands still in time.
Yeah.
Like people want to visit a culture and they think about it as it was 100 years ago. But it's important to point out that cultures evolve and time doesn't stand still
Yeah.
for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really important realization. And I think you will only realize that when you actually connect with the
Yeah.
locals. And I think that's why, well, that's the part of responsible travel to really be aware of it.
Yeah. So if we've talked about the definition of local connection and we've talked about why it matters, but another important part is where do you actually find it? I don't think you'll find it in the highlights, in the overcrowded places, the places usually connected to overtourism. So where do you find it?
Well, I actually asked Thomas the same question, and what he said is that they displace visitors in areas or regions where, generally speaking, there are less visitors. So the people living there are generally interested in the travelers, or where travelers are not a number, but just interesting people that are passing by that take the time to come and experience their way of living, and that are really pleased to see them. And the impact that the visitors have on these locations, on their daily lives, is positive, and they realize that. So automatically, the traveler feels more welcome because
Yeah.
it's more spontaneous. And I feel this is also the off the beaten track part where you're connecting with people without name badges. And I think it's all about when we talk about over tourism to spread out people and to bring people to places that have less visitors. So on the one hand, you spread impact, but you also ensure that people have a better experience, which is genuine, authentic, and I feel you kind of lose this when there are a lot of travelers passing by the same place.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that this might not be feasible for every travel business, right? Because a lot of travel businesses sell like pre-made packages. So do you think these local connections can happen on a less tailor-made level?
I think to a certain extent, I think it will be a lot harder. I know that Thomas put a lot of effort in building genuine local relationship with their partners, but I think still, as a travel business, you can still work with local guides, with small school accommodations, and you can select places that have, well, less visitors. So I think it's really important that in your travel itineraries or wherever you're sending travelers to, is that you will take into account, okay, are these people genuinely interested in having or receiving visitors? And if so, then okay, how can you explore facilitating these genuine connections? For example, by presenting a guide that really knows how to engage people in asking questions, for example. So I think overall, any travel business can ensure that a visit is perceived as positive to spread out people. And I think even with structured packages, I think it all comes down to the local connections you have, either the local partner, either with local guides or with accommodations. But again, it's there for people. It's there for connections, even on a B2B level. Is that you have to put effort in getting to know the people and knowing what they want to share.
Yeah, so it's all about putting your local partners into the right place, like
Ye-
partners at accommodations, restaurants, local guides, homestay owners.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, for example, with Karatunga in Uganda is where it's just they do active community-based tours. It could also be a biking tour with a very engaging guide, passing a few local tribes, or a food tour along local restaurants where you can just quickly connect
Hmm.
with the local chef, for example. So it's in all different aspects. You can find ways to facilitate
Yeah.
genuine connections.
But the more you have your partners in place, the easier it will get to have these local connections. For Pura Aventura, they stepped into this like a really specific niche. And I think for their competitors, it must be difficult to do the same. And I guess that's why they're in this specific niche. And that's a really good thing about how they do this. Now, one of the most important things here is how do you actually facilitate it? And to me, it does feel like putting partners in the right places, it'll help, but you still need that little bit of magic to happen, right?
Yeah, it definitely can't be forced, and I think it also very much depends on the traveler. For example, if you take yourself, like if right, what you said, you're not the person to go out and talk to everyone you meet along the way. While, for example, an outgoing person who's really just less than right talking to everyone, making new friends if they arrive within 5 minutes. But I do think that as a travel business, you can create the right conditions for genuine connections to happen naturally. And well, I think we already said this, but that starts with choosing places that have less visitors to, well, again, facilitate genuine connection, genuine interest so that people feel welcome. Second is working with local partners and local guides who really are mostly rooted in the local community. So they know the people, they are aware of the culture, I would say, and it can really boost the confidence of travelers to ask questions, to speak up and to be interested in anything they can learn. And third is obviously the traveler. Well, even who needs to be prepared. Because if they arrive with curiosity and awareness and a bit confidence to ask questions, they're more likely to actually engage a bit more.
Yeah, I remember Thomas like comparing it to being more of an architect than being a builder
Yeah.
because anyone can arrange transport and
Yeah.
accommodation, but it's about the space in between.
Yeah.
How do you fill that?
Yeah. Just coming back to the facilitation part is that we facilitate the environment. So the place, the people, the mindset.
Yeah.
And that is the unique formula to have JM connections unfold.
It's about creating these moments where the unexpected or memorable actually can happen.
Yeah.
And to conclude that, it all comes down to relationships, right?
Yeah, I think the real value lies exactly there in relationships. And I think, well, when we talk about how to facilitate the genuine connections, local partners, local guides, they're always mentioned because, like, if you have good relationship with your local partners and they share the same values, yeah, they will be able to facilitate the genuine connections with your travelers as
Hmm.
well. And I kind of like to see this. I think Thomas described it as a triangle of trust between travel business, the destination, so the local partners and the guides, and the traveler. And they all have a responsibility for a great travel experience, but also a responsibility for having a genuine connection with locals. So it's up to the travel business to select the right partners. It's up to the local partner to open doors to the actual community that travelers would have no way of finding on their own. to boost their confidence in talking to locals. And it's up to the traveler to bring curiosity and respect. And I think all that together will really create
Yes.
connections with both.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think everyone in this triangle plays their part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if one doesn't, the connection won't happen.
No, exactly. And I think this is really what Thomas meant by being in architecture is to really, well, I think it's really about facilitating, putting everything in place so that one said that genuine encounters can just unfold. Everything is in place. It's still up to the traveler and to the locals to make it happen. But all the ingredients are there. It's ready to go.
And in making it happen, I think preparing the traveler also plays a big part, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important that the traveler has at least some awareness about what he's getting himself into. And I feel this is definitely the responsibility of the travel business to prepare travelers for what to expect, maybe some background information, tips about local customs. And I think they kind of need that to feel confident to ask questions to really connect with local people so
Yeah.
that they're not really holding back because they're maybe scared to insult someone, for example.
Yeah, you need to feel at ease.
Exactly. You need to feel at ease. You need to feel confident. Okay, this is the way to go. And actually, Thelma had a very well. I got us a quite funny story about how they prepare travelers for a trip in Spain. Let's listen to the clip where he does that.
Spain's a great one for this. You walk into a bar in Spain, you know, in the UK, you go into a bar and you stand there until the person behind the bar comes up to you and says, "What would you like to drink?" And you say, "I would like my drink." You do that in Spain, you're there forever. I mean, unless the bar's empty. But in a full bar, you basically walk in, throw a you throw a request over heads, bodies, and somehow they hear it. And like a minute later, this glass appears over somebody's head, and to you, and if you didn't know that, you'd stand there feeling they're ignoring me because I'm a tourist and they obviously don't want me in here. So, you know, you sort of retreat out. So it's stuff like that, that it's kind of, there's simply a different etiquette.
Yeah, I think he really puts it in a way that he's giving travelers the confidence to go with it, to go with the local custom and see what happens, and to not retreat out because you feel like they don't want me here. I think that's a really good example of sharing local custom, preparing them for an actual local experience.
Yeah, go with the flow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they also give them background information, right?
Yeah. So, what they also do is they share tips on podcasts, books, movies about the destination, about the culture, but then also the traveler has a bit more awareness so they can have more well, random conversations. And then also that means that it's interesting for both parties. So, for example, your example in South Africa, where you were aware about the political situation and you knew they were going to be voting soon for a new president, is that you were actually talking about that. And
Yeah, I was prepared.
exactly. You were prepared, you were aware. And I think we also knew how to be a bit sensitive about, well, not judging who's on which side.
Well, the guide was anything but sensitive, but I started out sensitive.
You started out sensitive because you don't really know what their opinion is. But I think also for this guy, it was a very interesting conversation to also hear a foreigner's perspective on what's going on. So it was beneficial or fun or
I think we both liked the conversation.
exactly. And then you bond and you have a genuine local connection.
Yeah.
And even though it was kind of a transaction because you rebooked the tour, the actual connection with the guide
Yeah.
was really
And it,
spontaneous and genuine.
yeah, it did feel more like a friend joining us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a good guide has the ability to do that.
Yeah.
To really connect with people on a tour and to kind of, well, ask a little bit more about their interest and kind of find a topic that you can both have a good conversation about.
Yeah.
And I think preparing the traveler for that is, well, I think a very good starting point.
Yeah, I feel it's really interesting that they provide this kind of background information in ways of books, movies, because I've actually personally traveled to destinations just because of the music scene, for example. I've checked out like places from the music scene in the 80s and the 90s from Manchester.
Do you, for example, did you talk to people about the music?
Well, of course I talk to people because when you're in the UK, you start drinking.
That's true.
They do have a bit of a drinking culture, and after a few drinks, I do get more talk.
Yeah.
So, so I did speak to people about it, and it is still very much alive in Manchester nowadays. Of course, there's a lot of good music coming from Manchester, so to me, that's really interesting. And I listen to the music from the 80s and 90s in Manchester, but I also listen to the music that's produced there now.
Yeah, but also now that I think about it, like the stories that you shared about your Manchester trip were not the places you visited, but more like the weird people you found in bars. Of course, that's the whole point. Like people make the stories,
Yeah,
people make the travel memories,
yeah.
and everything else is the background.
The best memory there was like we didn't really know where to go, so we just followed this guy around who looked like Liam Gallagher, and we found this amazing bar. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just the way to go.
yeah, this spontaneous experiences always connected to people. I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to come back to the triangle between the traveler, the local partner, and the travel business for a moment,
Okay.
because it does make sense that the role of the travel businesses goes well beyond logistics. And they're not just arranging experiences, they're also shaping how these experiences are communicated. That brought me to the question, how do you actually market experiences like this? Thomas had something interesting to say about this. I've already shared it in the first episode of this season, but I'd like to mention it again because what he said was the following. He said, sustainability by design, you shouldn't sell it because nobody's buying it. Nobody's ever asked Mercedes for an airbag. You're just getting it. And I really love that comparison because you're just getting it by design. Now, I'm not sure if I 100% agree that nobody cares about an airbag. It's not exactly a unique selling point either.
No, but people do expect it to
How,
be there.
how do you feel this is for sustainability?
Well, what you said, like travelers have proven to not see sustainability as a priority for their travel experiences. So they will always see sustainability as a bonus and it comes second. So it's not actually selling. But what we have to sell as travel industry are sustainable experiences by default.
Yeah.
To where it's built in like the airbag. It's there because it's kind of a sure safety and or some people might be feeling that it's really important it's there. I think that might be the same with sustainability actually. So you have different types of sustainable travelers as we determined. But I think what we need to do is to sell stories. And we're selling experiences that have sustainability in it by default. And for example, by sharing a travel experience where you will go with a local farmer to a herbal medicine garden where he shares all the stories about how this plant helped that disease and how he's taking over from his grandmother and how they're helping the local community. That is a great experience. And with the storytelling that it actually is, you're showing what sustainability looks like in practice. So you build it in, but you sell it as an amazing experience, which it is. But storytelling has everything to do with selling sustainability here.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I do think that getting these stories might feel difficult for a lot of travel businesses, but I'm guessing as soon as you are building these genuine local connections, it might get a bit easier because they're already in touch with the local partners
Exactly.
and they're in personal contact with them. So the only thing you really need to do is ask.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, I really agree. And also Pura Aventura, that's the same. They have a high focus on sharing the story because they really understand that selling sustainability is about selling the experience, the genuine, the local encounters that people can have when they travel with them. And yeah, he actually had a really nice little description about how they do that, how they collect these stories from travelers. So let's listen to that.
When our clients go there and the hoteliers naming the names in the office and the people and the stuff, and they're like, oh, we've sort of fallen into this network of trust. And so actually, when they're sharing stories, it doesn't come across as now we need you to provide feedstock for our social media feed. It's actually they're sharing stories of kind of stuff that's happened, transformational stuff that's happened. And it's amazing. I mean, you work in travel and people's reasons to travel and reasons not to travel. They can be pretty emotionally powerful. They can be pretty inspiring. And so again, all coming down to sort of people, personality, relationships, they seem to share willingly.
What you said, like they are able to do this, they're able to get this feedback the way they're getting it because of their tight local network and their local connections and how they're actually have done is put it, they're friends with the
Yep.
local accommodation holders or with the guides and they really
But they're also getting them from the traveler, right?
yeah, no, exactly. But I mean, because they have such good relationship with the local network that as soon as people arrive there, they are welcomed like friends. So they automatically are put at ease. They know exactly who they're coming from, and I think this personal connection, it's so strong on the Pura Aventura side. The traveler automatically benefits from that. So they're welcomed by the communities as a friend who is visiting, and I think that's a very powerful way to start or to travel. And because they have these genuine connections, they are very willingly sharing these.
Yeah.
Because well, we determined that is that when you travel, you tell other people's stories. You want to share what happened to you. You wanted to share, for example, my dad, he likes to hike. And then when he comes back from his month trip to, I don't know, Scotland, he only talks about all the people he stayed at.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes they get a bit bored about how much he's talking about that person and because he goes very much into depth and it's
Yeah, and we don't know these people.
exactly, it's the whole point of he should have been there. But still, I mean, he's talking about the people.
He's passionate about it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think everyone is.
Yeah.
Because you share your travel stories are about the people that you
Yeah.
meet. And yeah, if you facilitate it right, you get this amazing feedback without having to ask for it, just because it has to
Yeah.
have an amazing time.
Yeah, I think it's a great way of doing this. And coming back to the triangle again, this is the bit about the connection between the travel business and the client.
Yeah.
And aside from getting great stories to share for their social media and great feedback, I think it's also an important part for them that I can only imagine they have a lot of repeat travelers because of this, because they have a good relationship with the client. And that's definitely an added bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. They really like to host events and do a lot of word of mouth communication. So they have like this tight group of travelers that really love the way you can travel with Pura Aventura to less traveled places, to actually connect with locals. I think it's a very powerful way to travel.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's time to wrap up again already, and I'd like to point out a few key points. One is that genuine connections can't really be forced, but you do have to create the environment for them to actually happen. Yeah, the second is the triangle of trust between the traveler, the travel business, and the local partners. It's really important that they all connect together. And the last one I found really interesting was preparing the traveler and give them a bit of background information about culture, about events, about movies or books that can go a long way.
Yeah.
And so these are the three things that really stood out to me. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think for the preparing part, I think a lot of travel businesses underestimate how much of a difference they can make by really elaborating a bit more like how does it work and why does it work like that and to really present it in well in a way that people want to read it. Some travel businesses just throw over like a handbook of 100 pages like your destination information
Yeah.
people might not read. But I've also seen travel businesses who have like this very, they have an app, for example, full of tips, videos, like movie tips, for example, to really in a fun, engaging way prepare travelers to, well, to be aware of where they're going and
Yeah.
to be excited about it. And I think overall, I think it might look like facilitating the genuine connections might be only for a very few travel businesses. I think any destination, any accommodation, any travel business has ways to somehow facilitate more genuine connections by adding few elements of everything that we discussed today. You can always just implement small bits. I think that's really important to start somewhere and to really include storytelling.
I think that when you do, you might actually get some more customer loyalty in return as well.
Yeah, actually, I think so too, because I think the better experience travelers have, the happier they are about you as a travel business,
Yeah.
and they'll probably come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think overall travel should be memorable. And I think we've proven that connecting with people while you travel really does just that. Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap up.
Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for next week's episode, where we release the full interview with Thomas from Pura Aventura. In the meantime, please share how you're currently facilitating genuine local connections. We'd love to find out. If you like this episode, please like and share, and don't forget to subscribe to not miss any future episodes. For now, thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time.
Bye.